But I think in terms of sex education, it was a lot of reading for me, and then porn, truly.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think like porn in the way that it was developed when there was still VHSs and DVDs. I'm not that old. I was born in 1986. You know, it was just a different way of taking it in. And so I think combo of like reading lots of health books. I'm still am a voracious reader, but I really was when I was younger. I feel like when I say voracious reader, I sound like Cat Williams. Let me just think about that. What I also really recommend in terms of porn is like find the actors or porn stars that you love and
Right.
follow them where they go,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know? And I think
Like
that's
following your favorite film director or fashion designer.
100%. Like I'll watch anything that like
Yeah.
Kate Winslet is in or
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, who are your people? I'm like, let me write down some names. Okay, Erica Chidi, welcome to Naked Beauty. Welcome back to Naked Beauty.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Very excited to have you on. I feel like I do need to read your official title, which I don't even have to read. I know. You're the CEO and founder of Loom, which is a well-being platform empowering women through sexual health education.
Yes, indeed.
Also an author and doula and lactation consultant and chef and like wellness expert and podcaster and friend
Yes, friend.
and skincare enthusiast.
I mean, I skincare enthusiast is probably the polite way of putting it. It's more like skin junkie.
Well, you know
Which,
this is a safe
you know,
space for that
I know,
conversation.
I know, I know. It's so funny when I hear you talk through all the things that I do. I'm like, wow, she does a lot of things. But
You do.
you know, it's like life is short. You know, I'm all about just trying to live your full bliss, even if that means you're moving around. But I think for me, as long as women's health, sexual and reproductive health is at the top of the pyramid,
Mm-hmm.
everything else kind of funnels in or funnels up towards that, you know?
Yes. And you do it in such an inclusive way, in a way that I haven't seen done before. So the stories that you're telling, like with Loom, like talking about abortion in a really frank and honest way, talking about polyamorous relationships, like these are the topics that are kind of seen as maybe more taboo. That you're not going to get from like the, I don't know, what to expect when you're expecting app.
No, you're not.
um, so there's like a radicalness to the sexual health conversations you're having, which I love.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been really fun, especially when the app came out last year and being able to go from having a brick and mortar space in LA to having something that anyone in the world can use.
Yes.
And we were app of the day the other day in the Apple store, which was super
Congratulations.
fun and nice little feather in the cap. So it's been really fun and kind of just a real journey to get here. I never thought when I started doing doula work like 12 years ago that I would ever even open a space or write a book or ship an app. So, you know, kind of anything's possible.
Yes, I would imagine that doula work gives you like just deep empathy and respect for women and our bodies and what they can do.
I mean, just beyond. I think women's bodies, people that have uteruses that can make humans, it's truly magic.
Yeah.
And I think there's there's a lack of reverence and respect for
Hmm.
all that it requires to go through the process, however you go through it. And I think, you know, doing doula work for, you know, a decade, I got to really understand kind of all of the pieces that are there. And just being in a body when you are pregnant is so intense, even if it's good and it's going well and it's what we call a boring pregnancy, meaning nothing super eventful other than the amazing, magical
Yeah, just casual building a human.
physiological
Yeah,
like
growing kidneys.
miracle that's happening. It's still a trial, you know.
Yeah.
I am pretty much fully retired from dual work. I occasionally come out for, you know, the bestie, the family,
Yeah.
and for, you know, women I really, really respect and want to support. But it's fun to bop in and
Yes.
out.
Yes. And I've just like made you my wellness coach, like my my
With
like
pleasure. With
I
pleasure.
call Erica before I like reach out to my OBGYN. I'm like, this is what's going on. Well, usually I'll get the like medical advice first and I'm like, this is what they told me and you're like, okay, correct, but you can take it. You're always telling me how to take it a step further, which I really appreciate. Today we're talking about sex and love and intimacy. But before we do, I want to talk about skincare because I want to know what you're using right now and what you're loving right now. because I trust your taste so much, and I feel like we have the same taste. Like we really
Yeah,
like we bonded over the vintner's daughter. Like if you like it, I'm gonna like it. You know those
vice
people.
versa.
Okay, yes, I
Period.
appreciate. You know when someone gives you like a bad restaurant recommendation and like it just kind of colors your entire,
Yeah, you're just like,
or you're just like,
I don't know
yeah,
about you. I thought I knew, but I
right.
clearly don't.
Right. You helped me find my chef for the Galentine. I was like, okay, if Erica likes this chef, it's going to be a good chef. And she was incredible.
Camilla,
So,
amazing.
Camilla,
Yeah.
so great. So, okay, what skincare are you loving now? Like, what is like your go to, can't live without, this is it?
Well, you know what's so interesting is, I'm gonna do a little shout out to my friend Anazan,
Oh.
who is behind Ricari Studios. So when I had my myomectomy, I guess almost 2 years ago now, I had a bunch of fibroids removed. I couldn't do anything for about 2 months. And I
Okay.
was, I'm a doer. I like to figure things
Yeah.
out, I like to keep busy. And so, Anna was like, why don't you just go to Skin Gym? Like, you can't do much, just like go to Skin Gym. And I was like, Skin Gym? She's like, yeah, just like do stuff for your skin.
Yeah.
And so I went on this quest to figure out how to really manage my hyperpigmentation and hydration and all of these things. So now what I realize is like my skin just needs a ton of water. It needs a ton of
Mm-hmm.
moisture. It's not really an oil situation. It's really about triple cleansing and
You're speaking. This is my love language. Like we're past the double cleanse. It's like
no, it's
you
triple.
you have to get your skin so clean every night. I keep telling people this. It's not like washing your face shouldn't take 5 minutes.
Not enough.
It's like a 20-minute like time.
It's giving time.
Yes,
It's giving
yes.
dedication.
Yes.
It's giving give yourself a good 25 to 30 minutes and
Yes.
it's giving outside of the shower, which
Oh,
is
1,000%.
okay.
Yes.
So the thing I started doing was I used to wash my face with my hands. I'd, do a couple
Yeah.
cleanses and what I didn't realize is like my skin doesn't like that. It needs to be like stripped and
Mm-hmm.
then beaten. So
We're
now
getting into the sex talk early.
yeah, we're getting there early. It's giving stripped and beaten.
Yeah.
So I do a triple cleanse. First thing I do is I was always into Biologique Recherche,
Yeah.
but I kind of was on like the P50 tip maybe like 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't understand that the line really works well like when it's used like in a compound way, like you're using different pieces of
Yes.
it. So now I use their micellar water, and
Okay.
start with that, and then after the micellar water, I will do. They have a new Late U now that's dermosensitive
Oh.
and not as rich, and my skin really really loves that. So
Okay.
I'll do. We'll do a session of that, and then the third cleanse. Sometimes, depending on like what I'm needing, sometimes I'll bop over to Prequels. Um,
Prequel, they just popped up out of
I
nowhere,
know,
and
I
like I feel
know,
like I get a PR package for them from them every week.
I know. A lot of my derm people like Prequel.
Yeah, I think everything's good I've tried so far, but I'm
Yeah,
just like, where did you all come from?
I know. She just kind of was like, "Hey, I'm here," but I like it. So I use a little bit of that, or I'll use April's Vintner's face wash. If
Oh,
I'm
that
just,
cleanser is
it's so
it's
good.
so
It's
good.
so good.
It's
If I
so
just
good.
want a little, and also if I want a botanical kind of
Yes.
moment, because I love the scent profile. So that's kind of the cleansing piece. The biggest save for me has been those cloth
The
wipes.
Clean Skin Club
Yes,
towels, I
yes,
know.
cults.
Yes.
Just like
Just buy
sign me
them.
up. Buy,
Just sign up. Just
just
buy
sign up.
them.
Get them, do it. So using that has been a big, big, big unlock for me because now I'm just like stripped super
Mhm.
clean. Then after that, I'll do a spray of Tower 28's SOS.
Yes, we love that product.
I'm just like that is like one of my hero products
Yeah.
because it just kind of kills. I'm fighting bacteria. That's really
Mm.
what I'm going after for my skin. And after that, I will then do my Dennis Gross LED mask every night,
Oh,
un,
wow, girl. Okay.
unfailingly, every night. Sometimes twice a day if I have like a lazy day at home and I
Oh,
can do it in the
wow.
morning, do it at night.
Okay.
Then I go on
What
to
have you noticed changed about your skin since you've done the LED masks?
just so I hyperpigment. Like
Mhm.
I can just go like that to my
Oh,
skin and it's
same.
a mark. And I'm just like, okay, like I guess this is what we have to do. So I love the LED light for helping with cell
Cell
turnover and
turnover.
inflammation management. So I'm
Mhm.
not as like inflamed. Especially if I do an extraction, that's when I'll double down on the red light. I might do it morning and night to just help move things along.
Mhm.
So I love it. And I like the flow of it. I like being like, okay, I'm gonna do this now, and like, and sometimes I'll do it like for 15 minutes just because I don't feel like you know, being done, and I'm not in the bathroom at that point. I'm like on the floor, like watching TV, and then I go back in the bathroom. Then it's barbiturates, hyaluronic acid.
Yeah, we love
Gotta
that.
do that every night. And then a new thing I started adding is Paula's Choice,
We love
which
Paula's
I
Choice.
know, which is like, I always was like, it felt a little like it was like giving QVC for me. And so I was a little bit
No,
like, is this
not
okay?
QVC.
It's,
First of all, Paula's Choice has been like a pioneer, like
yeah,
in terms of just like the efficacy of ingredients, like it's ingredient forward, but like
totally.
to a very high quality.
Yep, yep. And I'm late. I'm just super late to the game.
Yeah.
But they have this depigmentation
Oh,
serum.
the purple one, the dark mark corrector. I love that.
Ugh.
Yes.
And just the texture of it
Yeah.
is
I
so
love, wait,
nice.
it's on the fact that we have never had this conversation and we use so many of the same
I
products is like
mean,
kind of freaking me out a little
but
bit.
this is the thing. It's giving. It's a spiritual vibe. You're right.
Yes,
It's
yes,
like
yes,
skin spiritual.
yes.
And I love mixing barbiturates and the depigmentation serum from Paula's Choice together,
Yeah, and kind
because
of
then
creating
it's
a,
really just gives a little.
mhm.
So do that. Let that sit, and then I get super dry, and then we bring in our new friend that we've been using for the past 6 months, Tret.
Oh, tretinoin.
She's
Okay.
on the tretinoin
Yes.
train. Now, let me just say a little something to my tretinoin curious girlies folks, also to my people that use Accutane many years ago, because I was an Accutane girl. I
Oh.
had to because of all of the pigmentation issues, and Tret wasn't really on the scene in that
Mm-hmm.
way, because I was in South Africa and I was like in college when I was using Accutane. Accutane worked incredibly for me. What I didn't like was the dry lips and just
Oh,
like
it's
it's just
the most dehydrating thing ever.
you just look a little crazy when you're on it. You're like, skin is
Yeah,
great,
your
mouth
skin
is
is
like, what's
clear.
up, honey? So, but Tret I love because it's giving a lot of the same type of efficacy, but it's topical. And what I realize is my skin loves retinoids. It just is obsessed with it once you get over the uglies,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that
The
means,
purging
the
part.
purging stage. So I'm on the highest dose, and I do it every night.
Oh, wow.
My skin wants it. It
I
wants
mean,
to
your
be
skin looks flawless,
wants to
so.
be beaten. It just wants to be like, give it to me. Take it off, take it off. And Vanessa Lee, who I know we're going to talk about at some point, founder CEO of the things we do, was like really like encouraged me. She was like, some women or some people need just that constant cell turnover, and like if your
Mm,
skin can tolerate it, go for it. So try every night, and it's been a major game changer. And then if I have like a dark spot, I'll use Cosmolon too if I do an extraction.
okay.
So this was the thing. So I got introduced to Cosmolon from Vanessa.
I've never heard of Cosmolon.
Okay, people, let me tell you, it's
Yes.
like a peanut butter mask that you put on for like 8 hours. It has to be applied by a practitioner.
Okay.
Um, and essentially, it's got like kojic acid, it's got some hydroquinone, it's got some retinoid, and it basically just kind of like peels the skin, burns off like that first layer, but it's really focused on hyperpigmentation. It's not for acne.
Hmm.
And so, because I would look at Vanessa's skin and be like, Mama,
Yeah,
like
her skin is
what is up?
insane.
Like, what are you doing? And she was like, I do Cosmolon. And so I think it's from Spain. It's
Okay.
like developed in Spain. So I did that a year and a half ago, and that is really what just like totally changed my skin in like its texture, and then lifted, I'd say, about 80% of the pigmentation like right off. I think for girls in our tone, like Fitzpatrick, maybe 5, 6, 7,
Hmm.
8, fabulous for that. I
Wow.
feel like people who are not in that shade zone
Right.
don't see as much result, but I'm in love with it. And then Cosmolon 2 is the maintenance cream that you use for the next 3 months. Even after the 3 months, you can just use it whenever you see even a light dark thing coming up, like after an extraction or pimples coming up. I just like put it on there
Yeah.
twice a day, moves it along, and it actually creates like a little like a skin flake. It like moves all
In-
the melanocytes like up and off the skin.
Interesting. Okay, I'm definitely going to look into this.
She'll get you on it. I love it. Like makes me feel less stressed out about breaking out because I know I can kind of manage it.
Yeah.
And then last two steps are creme dur purifiante from by La Chic
Biologique.
Rocher.
Yeah.
It's their kind of acneic cream.
Okay.
So it's super helpful and really moisturizing. And then I'll just like do an occlusive after that, whether it's Aquaphor or Prequels
Oh,
situation,
I
just to
like
like
prequels,
put that in.
occlusive kind of Vaseline
Yes.
alternative.
Yeah, like souped up Vass.
Yes.
So that's it. That's what's going on. It's definitely some steps,
Oh
but
my gosh. Okay. And sex before or after your skincare routine? To
sex
segue into today's topic.
sex after
Okay.
for sure. I mean, it's so interesting. I think I feel more sexual when my skin is clean.
Yes.
I have a little bit of anxiety when I'm in bed and I'm like, didn't wash my skin yet,
Yeah.
and I don't want to. I don't want to come and then be like, okay, I got to go do my skin thing now. And it's happened before, and it's not pleasant.
Right.
It's a little like I'm ruining it for myself. I'm ruining what I just experienced by
'Cause
having to get in there.
right, you just want to kind of like lay down and drift off to sleep and
Yeah,
like relax, not think
exactly.
about doing this, 15-part routine and put on your LED mask.
Exactly.
Well, I'm curious, what was your early sex education? Like, how did you kind of first learn about sex? What did it look like in school? Yeah, did you have a conversation with your parents about it? Did you learn about it through health class?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I went to high school in South Africa, so there was no sex ed. I was at an all girls school too.
So wait,
Um,
no, like, did they tell you that period? I mean, just nothing.
Not really. It was
Okay.
like Anglican too, so it was very conservative.
Okay.
So I think for me, learning about my body really started with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
They're both clinicians, and my mom specifically was very kind of hands-on with like, this is how you wash your vulva, this is how you wash your armpits, like this is what you need to be aware of. And there was like no flap or fold like that wasn't explored. So I already had like a
That's great.
good connection with my body that wasn't necessarily like sex positive as we define it today, but just anatomically confident. I was like, I
Yes.
know where this is and I know where that is.
And did she use anatomically correct language? Because I hear a lot of parents talking to their kids about their private parts and they kind of use very cutesy little names.
She used the right names.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of important too. I think when you think about protecting helping us a young person protect their body, the
Mm-hmm.
more they actually are able to speak to what their parts are, the more they're able to have more autonomy
Mm-hmm.
over what happens to their body, or if their body is violated, being able to talk about it
Yes.
explicitly and be like, this is where it
Right.
happened. So I'm a big fan of like actual names.
Yes.
But I think in terms of sex education, it was a lot of reading for me, and then porn. Truly,
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think like porn in the way that it was developed when there was still VHSs and DVDs. I'm not that old. I was born in 1986, but it was just a different way of taking it in. And so I think combo of like reading lots of health books. I'm still am a voracious reader, but I really was when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger. I feel like when I say voracious reader, I sound like Cat Williams. Let me just think about that. I'm like, I read a lot, and I still do. And, that's kind of where I formulated my understanding of my body. And I was also really experimental. I think I started masturbating when I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8,
Oh,
somewhere
wow.
in there. Like, and I think a lot of people, when they actually drop in and think about it, there usually is, just from a developmental perspective, like some type of awakening during that
Mm.
stage anyway. But I've always like enjoyed how sex, pleasure, arousal
Mm-hmm.
has made me feel. So it's not something I've really shied away
Yeah.
from.
And it sounds like you didn't have any shame associated with it. You weren't taught to be, I don't know, afraid of your body or ashamed of having these feelings.
No, not really. It's interesting. I don't know how I bypassed
Mm-hmm.
it, to be honest, because my parents are Nigerian immigrants, Catholic, devout Christian, all of that. But I've always just been so single minded and
Mm-hmm.
very just kind of on my own path.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a lot for me to get deterred from what I feel I like or
Yeah.
what I feel I'm interested in. So I think my high conviction around my body
Yes.
and the things I liked kind of protected me from being overly
Yeah.
shunted into the shame
Yeah.
tunnel.
And it's interesting you bring up porn because I do feel, I'm sure there's been all types of porn for as long as people have been recording themselves having sex, but it does feel like the porn that's produced now is like, I would imagine that it would be more damaging to see that as a young person now versus like what was probably like a little bit romanced. The porn that I feel like is popular today feels just completely devoid of like any, I don't know what the right word is.
Well, I get what you're saying. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. It depends on what kind of porn you're looking at. I feel like on the highly produced end, where you're
Hmm.
in the world of like brazzers, there is this like slickness and kind of high intensity, hyper focus on penetration of
Hmm.
any kind.
Hmm.
A lot of, fluids and like cum everywhere and shit. And so, that's not
Yeah.
that's not really everybody's experience.
Right. Yeah.
But then at the same time, I think there's a democratization of porn in the
Right.
sense that you have like Pornhub community stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
looks like
Just like a
your
shot on an
bedroom.
iPhone.
Yeah, and that I think that from a device perspective feels a little bit more inviting. And then you have kind of these other branches, like there's I Feel Myself, which is this platform out of New Zealand where it's all um, shot by women and very much from a female or
Oh
feminine
wow.
POV, where there's a lot of like great masturbation content and there's a lot of great
Mm.
just like soft porn, and not soft in terms of there's really good orgasms, it feels very
Mm-hmm.
real, but it's just the like the mise en scène and the energy is very like, oh, I this is kind of regulating, I don't mind watching this.
Yeah.
And then there's
It's
like,
created with women in mind.
correct, yeah.
Yes.
And then there's like, there's kink.com, whereas that is, I also feel that content.
Is that based in San
It
Francisco? I
is.
remember when I was in
Yes.
college, people were like, that's the kink.com building.
It
And I'm
is.
like, why, as college students, do you know that?
They should know that. That makes sense. But yeah, in the Folsom, that big brick
Yeah,
building.
yeah, yeah.
And I honestly feel like kink.com's content is really educational and
Mm,
and really inclusive in terms of if you are into things that are not vanilla sex,
right.
meaning like, just not just the straight and narrow, simplistic, which is nothing wrong. Vanilla sex is not bad. So it just I think it takes a little bit of hunting.
Yeah,
And then what I also really recommend in terms of porn is like find the actors or porn stars that you love and
right.
follow them where they go,
Yes, yeah.
And I think
Like
that's
following your favorite film director or fashion designer.
100%. Like I'll watch anything that like
Yeah.
Kate Winslet is in, or
Okay, yeah. I'm like, who are your people? I'm like, let me write down some names.
honestly, I think, it's been a while for me since I've
Okay.
like uh so this is another thing too about me coming out later in life. I was,
Mm,
I think I was.
right. You were married. We've skipped over a lot. Well, yes. Let you tell your story.
I'll do the too long didn't
Yes.
read version.
Yeah.
I think I've always been gay, but that was never okay,
Mm,
growing up, especially being like an immigrant child. And so really repressed all of that. And then, when I was married, there was more room to kind of experiment. And I think when I was in my hetero stage of life, I consumed a lot of porn.
mm,
And a lot of the porn, pretty much 99% of it was lesbian porn, because what I was trying to do was kind of get, at least at some point in my day, out of the situation I was in.
mm.
And so now that I'm out and I'm with someone that I love and I have an incredible physical sexual relationship with, I don't really watch as much porn.
Right.
It just is not like necessary. And so I think that's a very interesting thing. And that's not a belittling of people who are
Yeah.
like, I have a great sex life and I watch porn. You good. I'm not coming for you. I'm really just saying, for me, it's been interesting to understand like when I was in the right identity and when I was in
Mm.
the right relationship, what happened to my desire,
That makes so much sense. That
Yeah.
makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
But I always loved like, Jada Fire,
Okay. Know
Sydney
her.
Sin,
Okay, don't know
like
her.
these really old school,
Just
like,
beautiful black women.
yeah, actually Sid is white,
Okay, I
but
don't know
Jada
her.
Fire
Jada Fire.
she's definitely black. And Jada Fire, what I always loved about her is she, she really like put her whole body into it.
Mm.
Like the orgasms always felt real. There was, and I think truly, and I feel like I was talking about this with my fiance the other day, it's like the porn you watch kind of sets up your arousal template.
Interesting.
And by arousal template, I mean like what are the things that tend to turn you on? Like arousal and
Mm.
desire are two different things. Desire is like actually having like the desire, the mental desire, being like, I would like to have sex. Arousal is my body wants to have sex. Like my nipples are hard, or
Mm.
like I'm wet, or whatever the case may be, if you have those parts. Um, and the idea is like you want arousal and desire to meet. Sometimes you can have desire and not have arousal, meaning you're not getting, wet, or you're not getting turned
Right,
on,
right.
or you can have arousal and like no desire. And arousal without desire is oftentimes a situation where people are put in a environment where they don't necessarily feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
which is why a lot of, people that have, been sexually assaulted can sometimes report having arousal features,
Mm-hmm.
but having no desire whatsoever. And sometimes there can be a lot of frustration for like a new mom, for example, who has a lot of desire, but because they're still breastfeeding or chest feeding, their hormone, cocktail doesn't really support arousal,
Yes.
right? So I think that's really important. I feel like, and I really take a leaf out of Emily Nagoski's book and just ethos of like, sex drive and libido isn't really a thing.
Yes.
It's really arousal and desire, and being able to differentiate between the two and understand where are the deficiencies on either
Mm-hmm.
end. And then from an arousal template perspective, like what are the things that really get your body going? And so I think the porn that you watch will end up setting up your arousal template.
Interesting.
And so it's, if you're looking for inspiration, I think that's something to kind of keep in mind. And if you've never thought about it before, like think about whether or not certain porn or porn stars or content you've watched has kind of shaped, the
Mm.
things that you like.
Yes, and this whole genre of like audio porn I find so fascinating as well.
100%. I love
Um,
it.
yeah, because it kind of can allow your mind to like wander and like make like it divorces the like physical image from it, which I think is really cool. How do you cultivate arousal in your day-to-day life by yourself or with your partner?
You know, I feel really lucky because I'm obsessed with my fiance.
You have a very cool, beautiful, kind, smart, just like she's everything.
Yeah. So I'm like a little spoiled in that way where I just I'm obsessed,
Yeah.
want her all the
And I
time.
feel like she's obsessed with you too, as she should be, right? Like you
Yeah,
guys
it's
are just an
very it's
incredible couple.
it's very mutual, and
Yeah.
also like, at some point one day our backstory is wild. So there's always just been this like magnetic pull
Mm.
between us. So I feel really fortunate that like I'm always wanting her in that way, and not just sexually. So here's the thing. I think from arousal and desire and just and the wanting of someone has,
Hmm.
for me, has a lot to do with what is our what's our intellectual chemistry, what's our like energetic frequency. And I think there's just there's these constant touch-ins. I feel like Esther talks about this a lot, that like before sex, like
Yes.
sex as we define it, the whole thing is foreplay.
Hmm.
So we're always like holding hands or like nuzzling, or I'm like touching her hair when she walks past, or the same to me. Um and I really also love the Gottman's approach of like do a 6 second kiss like every day, at least 6 seconds.
Okay.
Because when you go like, it's like there's not like an
Yeah.
exchange. But when you really take like 6 good seconds to just, even
Mm.
if you're not, no tongue, just put your lips to lips. This there's a down regulation that starts to happen in your body
Mm.
that reminds you that there's a bridge here, and if you want to cross that bridge, you
Mm.
can.
That's
You
beautiful.
know?
I don't do the 6 second kiss. I haven't even heard of that, which I think is so interesting. But I will, when I feel myself getting stressed, I'll like turn to Uma and I'll be like, "Can you just give me a hug? Like, can we just have a hug?" And it
Yeah.
just makes me feel so much better.
Of course, yeah. Like we're like hugging machines. We need
Yeah.
that. Most neurotypical people need uh need that contact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me as like a neurodiverse person, I really need like deep pressure. So I love a good hug. I'm like,
Mm.
thank you. But yeah, the 6 second kiss, is a way to just kind of like create that bridge. And so it's just these tiny little things. I mean, truthfully, she's super busy during the day. She works at an agency, and, I'm busy too with Loom and the multiple other projects I'm working on. And so, you know, with this relationship, like the phone is not really our thing. So it's a
Mm.
little bit of out of sight, out of mind. And so when we do come back together, uh, we do everything we can to really remind each other that we're in this space. Like it's a very um, somatic relationship, even beyond the sex. We're just
Mm.
really like present with each other's physical bodies, and there's a lot of gazing. We're big gazers. Like
Interesting.
I'll like be walking around the house, and just like when I was leaving this morning, like I'm walking out the bedroom and I didn't even look at her, but I noticed when I turned around she was just like looking at me.
Yeah.
And then we like to hold eye contact, and not in some like, woo woo, like I'm like holding your eye
Yeah.
contact, but just like really looking at someone like you're not going to
Yeah.
see them again, like trying to
It's
build that in.
It's so interesting that you're bringing up gazing. I recently interviewed Crystal and Keish. Do you know them by any chance?
Mm.
They're a beautiful couple. They are in Brooklyn, two women that are
Oh,
together.
yes, I do know them.
Yes. And they talked about like gazing at each other. And I also listened to your interview that you did with Esther Perel on the Goop podcast. And it was this, and I couldn't help but think, are some of these things specific to two women being together? Because I love my husband, love him down. I don't think that I've ever found myself just like gazing at his body. I don't know if that's just because the female body just is, but maybe there are some women that just like gaze at their husbands' bodies. But I don't know. It's, as I heard them talking, and then as I hear you talking about your relationship, and being that you were married to a man, do you think that there's something like inherently different about the way two women experience each other?
So I will say yes, but then I'm gonna circle away from that and then
Okay.
come back.
Okay.
So that is true. Heterosexual relationships function differently, but my ex-husband was a gazer.
Okay.
And not just gazer at the body, but really just eye to eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the type of gazing that Vatana and I really experienced together as well. Like
Okay.
obviously, the elevator goes down and it comes back up, but at the like at its core,
Eye contact,
it's really the
being
eye
present.
contact.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
also it's just like we're on our screens so much,
I
and
hate
or
it.
we're driving or
Yeah.
we're doing these different things. And so when you take a moment to just look at each other,
Mm-hmm.
it 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 just creates some rhythmicity and it helps you slow down.
Yes. Yes. Looking at your phone all the time, I really do believe it's connected to your overall well being. You know, I ask everyone on this podcast, when do you feel most beautiful? I interviewed Julie Schott, founder of Starface, and I asked her, when do you feel most beautiful? And she said, it's like on the days where I'm not looking at my phone. Like,
Totally.
it's like you can just, honestly, I feel like every hour you look at your phone, you feel like more dysregulated. Like, it just makes a huge difference. And I think one thing that a lot of couples fall into, myself included, is it's been a long day, you've got a lot going on, lots of meetings, kids, I mean, just stress. You get into bed, and then it's like you pull out the phone, you start scrolling on Reels. And there's something beautiful about being like side by side on your phone, scrolling through Reels, sending each other things, even though you're sitting right next to each other.
Totally.
Um, but then you have to put the phone down and like connect.
Yeah, I know. And this is the thing. I'm currently we are currently in in a battle against our phones. Like we are together in this battle against our phones.
Yes.
Cuz it is like that at the end of the day. And having worked in tech
Yes.
and worked at Meta, and having myself visibility into building an app,
Hmm.
you really are focused on habituation.
Yep.
You're really trying to understand, how do we habituate people into needing to use this
Yep.
at a high velocity,
Yep.
right?
How do we make it as sticky as possible?
Super sticky,
Yeah.
right? And so they have done that, and it's one of the reasons why I don't use TikTok. I have a TikTok just because I have one, just to have it, but I don't go on there because I think Instagram or Meta, um, and even Twitter are a little bit more hemmed in terms of the velocity,
Yeah.
in terms of how easy it is to get addicted.
Yeah.
And I knew when I started watching people around me get so sucked in, I was like, oh, this is not even about the content. It's like the product is so well built that
Yes.
you are just
Yes.
there, and it's just like it's just taking you along. So I feel good that I'm not on that drug. I'm just I'm actually just on the
The
Twitter
Insta-
or X drug, for better or for
Well,
worse.
you know what? I'm surprised you're not on Threads. I feel like you would really thrive on Threads. I love Threads.
Well, I need to think about Threads. I started one, and I'll go back.
Come back.
I will come back. I will figure it out. But back to the bedroom thing. Something that we've been talking about, Vatan and I, is like, okay, how are we gonna kick off this no phone in the bedroom situation? And it was interesting because she told me, she was like, before this relationship, I didn't have my phone in the bedroom.
Mm.
And I had to really stop and think about it. And I was like, oh, me having my phone in the bedroom and having my phone with me all the time is like a vestige of my doula work, because I was on call.
Right.
And I always needed my phone because I
Yes.
didn't know if I was going to have to go to a birth or something was happening.
Mhm.
And so that's deeply ingrained. And
I
then,
just had like such an unlock.
yeah, please tell me.
Well, because I was a social media manager for so many years, running the at Ralph Lauren Instagram. It's like I literally always had to be on my phone and kind of always checking like, and so it's just like a habit,
Yeah,
you know?
Totally. And now the life I'm in, and I don't know, I can't speak for you, I can only speak for myself. There isn't the need
No.
for that.
I've built this prison for myself. No one has put me in here.
Yeah. And it's on your own time and on your
Yeah.
own flow. And so I think, with our partners, they will, kind of pattern match our behavior. And
Mm.
so I feel like she's dialed up her usage and her kind of, close quarters with her phone because I do it. And so, you know, I'm really trying to wean myself off of it because, like, when I'm on the internet at night, I'm just like reading research articles and I'm like, just that's where I'm at. And so
You're better than all of us.
and but I'm finding them on Twitter, so I'm having
Okay.
to like look through and I'm
Okay.
saving things and
Yeah.
I'm like, Carrie from Homeland doing
Yeah, yeah.
this and whatever. So I want to create a different bedtime ritual that might look like sleeping on my back and mouth taping. I'm like really thinking about those
I
things.
I have
That's what I
mouth tape.
want. That's what I want.
Listen, I have mouth tape and an eye mask, and when you put those on,
It's over, huh?
it's like putting yourself in a coffin. You're like, we're done. We're
Wait,
done
I
here.
need more. Look, I need more about mouth taping. I'm taking in data points. What is your
I
experience?
actually have some extra. I can give it to you. So it's interesting. You can still talk with the mouth tape if you really want to.
Okay,
So
got it.
it
That's
doesn't.
good because she likes to chat.
Yes, I don't know if I feel a huge difference in the quality of my sleep, but I go to sleep quicker because you kind of
That's
have no other option.
so that's a selling point for me
Yes.
because I always sleep.
Mm-hmm.
We thank Allah, God, universe, ancestors.
Yes.
I sleep. But the thing I have is I panic before I go to sleep. Not a full blown panic attack or
Mm-hmm.
anything, but I'm always, and I've been like this since I've been a little girl. I'm always like, what if I don't go to sleep? What if I don't go to sleep? What if
Mm-hmm.
don't go to sleep? And I fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
So I could lose that
Mm-hmm. Yes.
for like kind of frantic energy
Yeah.
before falling asleep. I'd like it to be more like I'm passing out.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like maybe mouth tape
Yeah.
might give me that.
Passing out, I also like. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you ever take magnesium?
I am a mag
Yeah.
girl. I mean, I have a whole mag program, and
Okay.
that's why I do fall asleep. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
I'm someone who struggles with
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just struggle with the phone war.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You
I
know?
I completely relate.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about scheduling sex?
Okay. So it's funny. I I do and I don't. Right. I think any concept, anything I've talked about today, any sexual wellness framework you're offered, you always have to right size it for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what's going to fit right for me? I think scheduling sex is not my favorite thing. I think when you have small people, if you've made small people,
Yes.
different convo.
Yeah.
But when you don't have small people like me, and I feel like I'm saying small people, I'm code for children. If you don't have any, I think scheduling can create like some rigidity that
Mm.
sometimes cannot feel as helpful. And so I think what really is important is just thinking about the rhythmicity of it, the quantity of it, like
Mm-hmm.
trying to have sex, once or twice a week, having that more as a goal as opposed to we're doing it at this time.
Mm-hmm.
That said, though, a couple conversations with friends recently, it is nice to potentially have a time of day. I have a
Mm.
friend of mine who has kids, and for her, she's like, it's got to be in the afternoon. Like, I can't, if it's at night, the kids, I've put them to bed, I
Yeah.
made dinner, I'm tired, maybe I ate dinner and I'm just not in the mood
Yeah.
to have sex. So,
Right.
in the afternoon, like right before drop off, is
Mm.
great if my partner's home, and so
Interesting.
again, like the little people come in and demand some
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah.
But I think without little people, it just, making sure it's happening. And I think talking about it if it's not happening. And that's my
Mm-hmm.
thing. I think communication about sex is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I love talking about how it's feeling. Does it feel good? Like I love like analyzing an orgasm, like,
Fun.
and not like, and, not analyzing it to the point that it's not fun, but it's just kind of like, how did that feel? Or like,
Mm.
that felt so good. Like, because I do think like we don't need to like overly congratulate each other or our
Mm-hmm.
partners when we're having sex, but I think this acknowledgement of we are able to get there together, I think
Yeah.
is such a, I don't know, it's a really tender,
Yeah.
private thing that you
Mm-hmm.
get to have together. It's a conversation you can't duplicate unless you have multiple partners. And so I always like to dive into the space that's
Yeah,
there and kind of talk about, what's working and what's
sure.
not.
Time of day is interesting because I think if you are someone that loves morning sex and your partner hates morning sex, how do you find or if you're a low libido person and your partner has higher libido, even though it's not a fixed thing, it kind of changes. But how do you find compromise when maybe you're not on the same page as your partner with preferences?
You
Time
know,
of day, frequency.
yeah, I think it's all about literally compromise. It's give and take. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not a morning sex person and your partner is, sometimes you're going to have morning sex. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about. It's about doing what they want to
Yeah.
do when you don't fucking feel like it.
Yeah.
And then they're going to do what you want to do when they don't fucking feel
Right.
like it.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like, unless you live in a tyrannical home where it's your way or the highway,
Yeah.
or there's, mental health or developmental health
Mm-hmm.
things that make it impossible for you to meet your partner where they want to be met, you just have to kind of give and take and make sure that there's a nice,
Mm-hmm.
balance of both of those things. Because I think sometimes, like, the biggest act of love is surrendering to the thing that you aren't obsessed with. You're kind of just like,
Yes.
I wish this wasn't happening, but you don't tell them that.
Yeah.
You go through it, and sometimes by doing the thing that they want, it creates arousal and it creates
Yes.
desire,
Yes.
because ideally, like, you want to see your partner
Yes.
happy
Mm-hmm.
and satisfied, and they want the same for you. So sometimes you just kind of gotta push through, and then
Mm-hmm.
just make sure that it's equitable and reciprocitous, that they're going to
Yes.
do the same thing,
Yes.
as long as there's no pain, as long
Mm-hmm.
as there's no trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very different layer,
Mm-hmm.
and probably for a different conversation. But if it's more just like a psychological, I got to get over the hump on this, you know creating that elasticity is
Yes.
great.
And you mentioned 1 to 2 times per week. For couples that are at once a month, do you feel like that is always a signal that there needs to be some better communication in the relationship? Or if both parties are like, once a month works for us?
you know y- it's really about writing your own
Yeah.
rules, right, and understanding, like, what does satisfaction really
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
feel like in your body. Like,
Yeah.
what does it feel like in your body? When do you know that you're sated?
Mm-hmm.
And then what does it feel like to feel deficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really believe in quality over quantity.
Mm.
And are your sexual experiences, are your orgasms points of resource? So when I say that, what I mean is, if you're not having sex frequently, but when you do come, it's so good and it's so connected, and there's eye contact and you're sweating and there's all of this, like, imprinting that's happening in your
Mm-hmm.
body,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you go a month or 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
if you close your eyes or hear a certain song or smell a certain scent, all of those feelings come flooding back into your system. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Like, once a month is maybe all that you need, or all that the relationship can manifest or
Yeah.
withstand, right? And so that's why I always feel it's really about quality, and then it's the ability to just resource from it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, you could be having sex every single day, but it's just fine.
Yeah.
It's like using a vibrator. It's like you get there and you're good, right?
Yeah.
That's also totally good as well. That's totally fine. But I think what I'm trying to lean into is, for people who are like, we don't have sex that often. If the sex is really, really good and you can resource from it in between,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the frequency thing, when you live in the culture that we do, I find myself always saying this, it's like a broken record. It's not designed for intimacy. It's not designed for time with your partner. It's
Yeah.
about capitalism and
Right.
making money
Yes.
and going on vacation and eating dinner and putting your kids in school and
Mm-hmm.
achievement. None Nothing that really actually helps support, like, arousal and desire, which is why so much sex happens around, you know, requires the lubrication of alcohol or some other kind
Mm.
of substance to help you drop in. No judgment, but it does kind of go hand in hand. And so I think we all need to be more gentle on ourselves and understand that, like, most of the day we are in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
We're in sympathetic overdrive. We're like, and the phones are keeping us there, you know. So you're always up here, and to have sex, oftentimes you need to come out of up there, come out
Mm-hmm.
of the sympathetic response, drop into just a baseline, and then go into parasympathetic response to get there, right?
Yes.
And most of us don't get the chance to do that state change, right?
Yes.
We're just kind of flung into one state. And then sometimes when we want to get out of that state, it is when we happen to go on vacation or leave our homes or environments. And then by the time you kind of come out of that state change, you got to go back home.
Yeah.
So I think it's really about learning to do small things that help shift your
Mm-hmm.
your state. And
Yeah.
that's not having the phone in the bedroom, that's exercising or walking, it's a long bath if you have a bath, or a long
Yes.
shower or a quick shower, just
Yeah.
thinking about what are the things that help
Totally.
jump you out of bed.
And I feel lucky that I have a partner that loves to set the mood, loves to do the candles, put on the great music, like he is really into like let's make this a moment for
100%.
us.
I went to when I got to your home, and your husband's clearly an audiophile. He has
Oh
like
yeah.
all this amazing
Yeah.
sound stuff, and so I have no doubt he's able to just
He's a
like,
mood setter.
yeah.
We've talked a lot about relationships and sex when you're in a relationship. Of course, sex can be something incredible when you're just on your own. So I'd love to hear tips you have for how people can cultivate arousal in their personal lives, whether it's through masturbation or just, I don't know, doing a body scrub or taking a dance class. Like, how do you kind of help to guide people through getting in touch with their sexual nature and arousal, even if they don't have a partner?
Yeah, well, it's interesting for me. I really have always suggested that arousal, desire, sex starts way before any of those things. And a
Mhm.
lot of it is about not being disassociated from your body and
Mm.
actually making contact with your body often. So even as I'm sitting here right now, like I was actually dissociated up until I just talked about this right now. And I'm like, oh, I'm in a chair. This is a chair. Okay, my elbows are over here, my butt's here, my legs are crossed. I feel the weight of my shoes. I feel these headphones.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
it's it's really about, do I know I'm in a body?
Mm.
Because oftentimes, because we're in this kind of sympathetic part of it is just remembering that that body is there, and just, you know,
Yes.
reminding yourself.
It's there are so many times where I'm working and I realize I'm holding my breath
That's
and I
right.
just like exhale and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, breathe. You're a person. Like what do you
Yes.
like?" And it's like it just takes like taking a breath to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a person in a body that needs to breathe."
That's it.
Yeah.
And even now, it's just that small reminder
Mhm.
that you are a physical being. And that, again, like I said a little earlier, is like that's what creates the bridge. It's like, oh, and then being like, oh, do I want to masturbate later? Like, am I
Mhm.
turned on? Do I need that release? Like, being
Mm.
able to understand that, and then also being able to understand that, and then decide, what do I want to bring into my environment to give me that release? Is
Mhm.
this, a moment where I'm going to like masturbate with my hands? Some people
Mhm.
do that, some people don't. Do I want to use a toy? Do I want to watch porn?
Mhm.
Do I want to think about the last person I had sex with?
Mhm.
Do I want to listen to audio, porn? Do I want to just, whatever, read a book that's like a little bit on the romantic edge? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's just, if you can start to tap into your body and notice that it's there, that's going to create this bridge to other things that you're needing. And I think too, like, the most important sexual relationship we have is with ourselves.
Mm.
Like, period.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know what your body needs, like, again, I know there are people out there who have never had an orgasm, and that's, again, a totally different conversation for another time. But I think even beyond having an orgasm, which is not really the end all be all, it's like, if you don't know what you're needing, you can't find that with somebody else,
Yeah.
if that's even what you want. I think we're also in a culture now where there's a lot more room for, asexuality, aromanticism, not necessarily needing another person to feel full and to
Mm.
feel sexually satisfied. And so that's really my tip. It's less like you got to do this and this and this. It's just like you actually have to recognize that you're here and in your
Yes.
body, and then being able to design from there what it is that you really
Mm.
want, which might be like, I don't really feel like masturbating. It's not that I'm not sexual. It's just not
Right.
what I'm wanting.
Right.
There's a lot of masturbation pressure, I feel. Sometimes, like, are you masturbating? You should be masturbating. It's like, I don't know. Like, this world's super stressful. I don't necessarily want. And that's the thing, too, when you're trapped in a sympathetic response in
Yes.
that fight or flight, it's so hard to masturbate because you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, I'm too stressed out to even
There's
get to the
like,
thing.
yes, there's like feeling sexy and stress are like just so diametrically opposed. Like the more stressed you feel, the more sex is just like it's like this distant planet, like far away,
Totally.
right? That's why people have better sex on vacation. To your point, because they're like relaxed for
Yeah.
once and like breathing and
All of it.
enjoying their life.
Totally. And the thing too is like sex begets more sex, right? The
Mm.
more you do it, the more you want it. So that's also the thing too. It's like it's a little bit of like
Yes.
there's an edge to it. It's so if you don't do it at all, you probably really won't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start kind of putting yourself on a little bit of a nutritional plan of I want to have 1 to 2 orgasms a week, you'll probably find you'll stick with that or kind of, start to up that potentially
Yes.
to more. But again, there's no pressure, there's no judgment. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just starting with that I'm in a body. What does my body need? We always are like, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy. I need to go to the bathroom. Do I need to have an orgasm?
Mm.
Do I need physical touch? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And I think if you're single, I was actually, so there's 2 quick stories here. One, I was with a dear friend the other night, and she was like moving through something and had talked about how in her relationship there wasn't a lot of touch because they're, moving through a potential separation. And so when I saw her, we just like hugged for 10 minutes off and on because I knew that that's something that she really needed. And I really wanted to give that to her because that felt good for me. And I remember when I was going through my divorce, I was in New York, and my friend Angela and I were hanging out, and I was so dysregulated and just so overwhelmed with everything that was going on. And, she was just like, I'll just like stay over. And she just stayed in the hotel with me, and we just cuddled. And it was just so kind and sweet and tender and platonic,
Yeah.
And so I think, a lot of people are touch starved. So I think if you have friends that you're close enough to that you can
Yeah.
lean into for that type of physical touch, we need that as humans.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Touch starved is not something I identify with as a toddler
oh
parent.
my gosh, you're touched out.
I'm
I
like
wrote about that for Emily Oster's newsletter. I was like,
yeah, the opposite end of the
opposite. You're
spectrum.
just like, I am good.
I just actually want to be alone.
He's like over here, and you're like, I'm hiding behind here.
Yeah.
But I love you. He's
Yeah.
so cute, though.
He is
Oh my
adorable, and
God.
I love my like hugs and cuddles. But yeah, I get a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I love that you're saying a topic for another time because we haven't even shared this. But like, you will be coming back to Naked Beauty. This will be a regular thing. We
I
have
will.
like a whole list of topics, so we're very lucky to have you and your expertise. I'm going to ask you some myths, some like common myths. Let's do a little bit
Let's
of
go
myth
for it.
busting.
Let's see
Okay.
what we got.
Are certain foods aphrodisiacs? I feel like you hear like have oysters to like set the mood.
So I'm not going to really comment on that because I think I'm not totally I don't have enough visibility on the
Okay.
most recent literature to be able to say it in a way that I'll feel anchored about in like 3 to 6 months. But what I will say, having gone to culinary school before I went to college, is that making food together, seeing food, is incredibly sexual, at least for me. I mean, and again, it's just like the colors, the scents, the smells, the just all of that. So I'm a big fan of food and sex. I know some people are like, when I eat, it's hard to
But
fuck.
also, like, what are you eating? You
I know. That's the thing. It's like,
Like, you shouldn't be that out of the game after a meal. I mean,
if you know that's what you want to be doing,
yeah.
And then if you are a little full, like you can always, do other things leading up to actually like
take a beat.
And that's another thing we can talk about in the future, like intercourse versus outer course, right?
Yes.
Like being like, here's what I have like the bandwidth for. So, but yeah, food is sex. Sex is food.
Okay, I love that. Okay, I see lots of supplements. I also get sent these supplements that like claim to boost libido. And I know you're big on supplements. You've recommended supplements to me.
I do love supplements.
We all know supplements can make you feel good in your body, but are there specific supplements you can take for libido? And I guess for women, I should ask.
I'm gonna pause on this and we can come back to it because I have a couple of different thoughts. This is like definitely gonna be a longer answer. So I think the short version is when I think about sex, one of the number one things I hear from most people that have vulvas is, well, two things, is pain, managing vaginal
Mm-hmm.
pain, vulvar pain, um, and also uh, lack of lubrication or wetness, feeling
Mm-hmm.
dry, right? So when I think about supplements for sex, I'm thinking about pain management typically,
Okay.
and I'm thinking about lubrication. And maybe a third pillar of that would be like inhibition management, right?
Mm.
So on the pain management side, especially for folks who are dealing with, um, you know, vaginismus or vaginal pain,
Mm-hmm.
or who have just had a baby,
Mm-hmm.
maybe also if you have, fibroids like I did for a long time, something that can be super helpful is taking like a Tylenol and an ibuprofen within an hour or so of knowing that you'd like to have sex, to really just
Mm.
manage pain response, lower inflammation. Super helpful, you know,
That makes sense. Yeah.
across the board. And then, on a inhibition, and CBD can also fall there as well. And then I think on the inhibition side, just being able to just down regulate enough to like open up. I think, again, CBD or cannabis is, tried and true. Mushrooms, tried and true. A glass of wine, like, those are vectors, right, to
Mm-hmm.
help get the system
Mm-hmm.
out of its tight and into, I'm a little bit more open now. And then on the lubrication side, I feel like lube is
Yes.
so underused
Okay, so let's talk about
in sex.
lube. Let's talk about lube because it's like there's like the lube you can get at CVS. Some
We're
people
not doing that.
use
We're not doing that.
okay, some
We're not
people
doing
use
that.
coconut oil.
We're
So
also not doing that.
okay, so what are we doing?
So here's my thing. Lube from CVS. Actually, look. Let me hold here. CVS, I know she is trying.
Yeah.
I know she is stocking cool things. I know
Okay.
she's got like the honey pot. She's got the vibes.
Yeah.
Like she's doing a thing. So let me say this. If you can find these brands I'm going to talk about at CVS or Target,
Yes, go
go
for
get
it.
go get
Okay.
it. But coconut oil for me is a non-starter because it is incredibly antimicrobial,
Yeah.
meaning that it kills anything that needs to be killed around, right?
Mhm.
And so the vagina, not the vulva, not the
Mhm.
lips, not the mons pubis, not the whole
Right.
beautiful external thing inside the vagina, the whole, that environment is can manage its own pH pretty well. um Actually, another topic for another time is talking about vaginal dysbiosis and community state types, and we'll go into that at another point. But the lubrication piece is you really want to use something that's going to have a very similar osmology to what your normal lubrication is like. Coconut oil is not that. It's a
Right.
very
Yeah.
different thing.
Totally
It's
different.
not
Yep.
what your body's making. And so a lot of companies make lube that has that osmology that's going to be supportive and almost as close to what your own secretions would be like.
Interesting.
So that's
Okay.
what you need to go after,
Okay.
because you ideally, like, you don't want to have sex and then, especially if you're having intercourse, and then be like, "Oh, I gotta wipe myself out afterwards," or I don't want the
Mhm.
smell or the texture of like the coconut oil. And also coconut oil can go rancid. It's oil.
Yes.
So it's like you got to really be on top of it. And if you're not, then that can create more
Mhm.
challenges down there. So the lubes that I am so happy they're making it again, because I feel like for a moment they weren't. Necessaire makes the
Oh
sex gel.
wow.
It's so good. And it's not just good as the actual quality of it is amazing. And it does have that.
Texture, tackiness, like that.
Yes,
That.
it's got the good pH and the good
Yeah.
osmolality profile to
Mhm.
it, but then it also has great packaging, and the pump is so good. It's a very
Mm.
satisfying pump. So I love their sex gel. I love Sliquid. Anything by Sliquid is great.
Okay.
Sliquid is really good. And then Subtle is another one that's also really great. Subtle you have to buy from them directly, but big fan of that. And those are all water-based lubricants. Then there is silicone-based lubricants. I'm not a big fan of silicone-based
Yeah. What's
lubricants.
the difference?
One has silicone, one does not, basically. But
But
in
why?
terms,
I guess why would someone choose silicone versus water
so
based?
silicone is going to be probably more preferable for people that are having anal sex or anal
Mm.
penetration of any kind. The anus is not self-lubricating,
Right.
and you don't want to have to keep going back and adding more and more. Silicone, typically when you add it, you don't need to put a lot more. A little goes a long way. A
Got it.
water-based lubricant needs more and
Got
more
it.
and more, which is nice because like
Mhm.
you might want more and more and more and
Mhm.
more.
Mhm.
But I think, especially for my people that are having penis vagina sex, I think oftentimes if you're like, I really, really want to fuck, I want to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but your body's just like, it's just like, no, no, no. I love lube because you can get lube, put it down there,
Mm-hmm.
and take some nice deep breaths, just like, make out a little bit, or just have your partner just lie on top of your body. Just
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the pressure of another body on
Mm-hmm.
top says to
Mm-hmm.
the body, hey, 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 we want to do this.
Yeah.
Let's settle. And then the lube is there, and the person can enter and can move. And sometimes getting into the mechanical movement
Mm.
helps send your body into, oh, we're here. I'm gonna do
Yes.
this.
Yes.
So if the delta for you right now is like, I can't get wet, I'm too exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
get that lube and just
Yes.
start. Just start and then
Yeah.
see what happens. If the desire is there. If you're like, I really don't want to have sex, and you're trying to force yourself to, that is a completely different
That's a different thing. It's a
situation.
different thing.
You're having to do some mental work before we even get to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a
Yeah.
desire, lube.
Okay. I also feel like more skincare brands are going to start making lube. Like, I love that Necessaire does that. I didn't
And
realize
they,
they
for
had one.
years, that was one
I
of
love
their,
that.
like, I think maybe their fifth or sixth SKU, I think, or seventh SKU. It was very early.
Yes.
Very smart though, and it makes so much sense and also the consistency of a lot of their products is in that world, and so it makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
This last like myth, it's really going to be a PSA because I'm just amazed that I still see advertisements for like vaginal wash and douching and like make yourself taste like honey, and I'm just like,
So stressful.
are we doing this
We're
in
not doing it. We're not doing it.
2024?
We're not doing it.
Make yourself taste like a strawberry, all of this stuff.
Mm-mm.
Am I correct in saying stay far, far, far away from anything like scented? Just and any inner like vaginal washing does not need to happen.
No,
Yeah.
no, it does not need to happen, and it's it's just like a strange thing that it even exists in the sense that it's is misogyny and patriarchy working overtime to try to
Mm-hmm.
make us feel like the way we taste isn't good. It's totally good, and it doesn't need to be altered. If
Yeah.
you have like bacterial vaginosis or trichinosis or other things
Very
like that,
different thing.
that's a really different thing, and
Mm-hmm.
actually what you don't need is more things to disguise. We need to be looking at what's the root cause, which is something else we can talk
Mm-hmm.
about. But I think we should all be comfortable or neutral about how we smell,
Yeah.
and there shouldn't be any need to wash or douche. It's really just creating more chaos down there. Not good chaos,
Yes.
bad chaos.
Bad chaos. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I can't
Me
believe I've
too.
never talked about sex before. I mean, you really are the perfect person to talk about it, but I feel like we've got to like there's so much more we can explore.
So much more.
I'm curious for you in your sexual life, what are you hoping to let go of and what do you want to call in more of?
Hmm. I think what I'm hoping to let go of is just tension, like feeling
Mm.
like I can't relax enough to drop into my body to surrender to this thing I always like and
Right.
love.
Yeah, it's like
You
you
know,
do it and you're like, "Oh, I like
I
this."
love
Yeah.
this. Why am I not doing this more? So I think it's just getting over that psychological hump.
Mhm.
I have OCD diagnosed, and so I have a lot of intrusive thoughts,
Mhm.
and I have a lot of like rumination and perseveration, and so oftentimes I'll be what's interrupting me is not even my phone. It's just like there's these like repeating
Mm.
thoughts, and so I do a lot of like work around managing all of that. But I think for me, like, my mental health and my sexual health kind of go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
just hoping to create more spaciousness for myself to surrender to sex in the way that I want to, and things. Did you say something to let go of and then call in?
Yeah, what do you want to call in? What do you want to have more of in your sex life?
I want to call in more play and more rope play. I'm
Mm.
really, 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 and again, with absolute and utter reverence for the art of shibari and the Japanese art of rope
Yes.
tying, what I've noticed and found about myself, especially as I've kind of delved more into my neurodiversity, is I really like constriction.
Mm.
And the constriction for me, and I know Jessamine Stanley's talked a lot about this over the years as she's or they have been more open about their relationship with ropes and bondage and things like that. It's actually not about like any type of discomfort. It's actually about the constriction creating this like organization in the body.
Mm.
And most of the time when I've even dappled in any type of rope or bondage play, it's made me want to go to sleep.
Like a
In
weighted blanket kind of vibe.
exactly like
Yeah.
that. And so just having the space and time to experiment more and
Mm.
understand like rope textures and
Yeah.
like, different types of ties and knot like structures and
That
things like
feels
that.
like a really fun, like months-long hyperfixation. Like you could really go down that rabbit
It's
hole.
definitely giving special interest and could be around for a long
Yeah.
time.
But that's
So,
that's like really
yeah.
cool. I'm excited for you to explore that more. And final question, which is, when do you feel most beautiful lately? When are you feeling most beautiful lately?
I think I feel most beautiful when I'm lifting.
Mm.
So I started weightlifting a
Love
year ago.
love weightlifting.
Yeah, and like when I'm doing them RDLs and them deadlifts, I'm like,
Love an
let's
RDL.
go. Let's go, honey. Like, look at you
Yes.
doing it.
Yes.
So that's kind of my thing now. I really want to get strong, especially after my surgery. That's kind of the journey I'm on. It's like I want to
Mhm.
build as much muscle mass without it being stressful for others. By the time I'm 50. That's my
Yes.
plan. Because
Yes.
it's all kind of all downhill from there. It's hard to keep building more muscle mass after that.
Yeah. No, I relate to that so much. I think strength training, there's like nothing quite hits that same, like, I don't know, reward center that I get from when I'm
Totally.
like doing like a deadlift or doing a kettlebell swing or like my RDLs, or yeah, it just like feels so good.
Yeah, I love that we're on that same tip right now because it's
Yeah.
good. It's like I still love like my Pilates and my
Yeah.
gyrotonics and my walks, but
It's not the same.
I it's addictive.
It really is. It
Hmm.
really is. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Erica. I
you for
can't wait to
having
have you
me.
back. This was such a special conversation, and I'm excited to like explore and go deeper. I think we have to do like a live conversation here in LA.
100%. That'd be so fun.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me.
Amazing. Yay.